It's okay to be selfish, as long as you don't harm others. Written by Brian Aris. Copyright 2025 Brian Aris. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including photocopying, recording, or other electronic or mechanical methods, without the prior written permission of the copyright holder, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical reviews and certain other non-commercial uses permitted by copyright law. Acknowledgement. This book owes its intellectual foundation to the groundbreaking philosophy of Ayn Rand, whose works, particularly The Virtue of Selfishness and Atlas Shrugged, inspired its core ideas. Rand's fearless defense of rational self-interest and individualism provided the spark for this modern exploration of selfishness as a virtue. Her clarity of thought and unapologetic commitment to reason continue to challenge and guide those who seek to live authentic, purposeful lives. While this book reinterprets her principles for a contemporary audience, it stands on the shoulders of her profound contributions to philosophy. Preface. You have been lied to your entire life. From childhood fables to the sermons of preachers, from the platitudes of politicians to the casual remarks of friends and family, the message has been relentless and unchanging. Selfishness is a sin. It is the root of all evil, the cause of suffering, the mark of a bad person. We are taught that the good life, the moral life, is one of self-sacrifice, of putting others first, of giving until it hurts. We are told to be selfless, to live for our community, for our nation, for our God, or for some vague, undefined greater good. This book is a direct contradiction to that lie. This book is a manifesto for a different way of living, a new kind of virtue. I am here to tell you that it is not only okay to be selfish, it is a moral imperative. But we need to be clear about what we are talking about. The word selfish has been poisoned. It has been twisted to mean a greedy child snatching a toy, a ruthless executive exploiting their employees, or a manipulative lover using someone for personal gain. That is not selfishness. That is an act of short-sightedness, of irrationality. A person who acts this way is not truly interested in their own long-term well-being. They are driven by a fleeting impulse, a desire for immediate gratification, and they ultimately hurt themselves as much as they hurt others. What I am talking about is rational selfishness. This is not the desire to harm others, but the reasoned, principled pursuit of one's own values and goals. It is the recognition that you, as an individual, are the central purpose of your own life. Your mind, your passions, your career, your happiness, these are the things you should be dedicating your life to. This is the ultimate morality, to live your life for yourself. You have a right to your own life. You have a right to the fruits of your labor, to the love you earn, to the joy you create. When you embrace rational selfishness, you are not closing yourself off from the world. You are engaging with it on your own terms. You are building relationships based on mutual respect and voluntary exchange, not on obligation or guilt. You are working not out of a sense of duty, but out of a profound passion for what you do. You are creating value for yourself, and, in the process, creating a more prosperous and vibrant world for everyone. This is a philosophy built on the foundation of the individual. It is an argument against the collective, against the idea that your purpose is to serve others. It is an argument for reason as your only guide, for ambition as your greatest virtue, and for personal happiness as your highest moral purpose. Over the course of this book, we will dismantle the lies you have been taught and replace them with a new framework for living. In Part I, we will lay the philosophical groundwork. We will define rational selfishness and make a moral case for it, showing how it is the only path to a life of integrity and purpose. We will explore the vital roles of reason and individualism in this pursuit. In Part II, we will get practical. We will apply the principles of rational selfishness to the real-world choices you face every day, your personal relationships, your career, and your financial life. We will show you how to set boundaries, pursue your passions without guilt, and create wealth not as a sign of greed, but as a tool for freedom. In Part III, we will confront the critics head-on. We will address the most common objections to selfishness and show how an individualistic society is not a jungle of conflicting interests, but a vibrant ecosystem of cooperation and mutual benefit. We will envision a future where individuals are celebrated for their ambition and their achievements, not for their sacrifices. This is not a book of easy answers. It is a challenge. It is a demand that you confront the person you have been and choose to become the person you were meant to be. It is a call to action, an invitation to a life of uncompromising purpose. This journey begins with a single, brutal truth. Your life belongs to you. No one else has a claim on it. It is time to take it back. It is time to be selfish. Part I. Philosophical Foundation of Rational Selfishness. Chapter 1. What is selfishness? We've all seen the cartoon caricature. The greedy miser, the child who refuses to share a single toy, the person who pushes past others to get what they want. This is the image society has painted of the selfish individual. It's a convenient lie, a simple and ugly picture used to demonize anyone who dares to put themselves first. But this isn't selfishness. This is an act of blind, irrational impulse. True selfishness is a moral virtue, not a character flaw. It is the pursuit of one's own rational self-interest. It is a life lived by choice, not by duty or sacrifice. To be selfish in the truest sense of the word is to have a life of purpose, guided by reason and driven by your own values. It is the conviction that your own happiness is the ultimate moral purpose of your life. The foundation of rational self-interest. The common definition of selfishness, that of a person who is concerned excessively or exclusively with themselves, with no regard for others, is a total misrepresentation. It conflates a rational act of self-preservation and growth with a destructive, parasitic one. The greedy child is not acting in their best interest. They are acting on a whim. They may get the toy, but they lose the respect of their peers and the chance for a more meaningful interaction. They are not thinking long-term. They are not using reason. Rational selfishness, on the other hand, is a principled choice to live your life for yourself. It is not about harming others. It is about refusing to harm yourself. It is the fundamental recognition that you are the central hero of your own story. Your life is not a means to an end for someone else's benefit. Your purpose is not to serve. Your purpose is to live. The foundation of rational selfishness is twofold: reason and personal values. Reason is your mind's only tool for survival. It is the process of integrating knowledge into concepts, forming judgments, and drawing conclusions. When you act out of rational self-interest, you are using your mind to make decisions that will lead to your long-term flourishing. You aren't acting on a whim or an emotional impulse. You are thinking, what do I need to do to achieve my goals? What are the consequences of this action? Is this choice aligned with my deepest values? Personal values are the things you act to gain and keep. They can be material, a successful business, a comfortable home, or spiritual, a meaningful relationship, a creative passion, a sense of purpose. These values are not given to you by society, your parents, or your peers. They are things you discover through introspection, through trial and error, and through the use of your own mind. To be selfish is to have the courage to identify your own values and to pursue them with unwavering dedication. The two work hand in hand. Reason is the rudder, and values are the destination. Without reason, you are adrift on a sea of desires and emotions. Without values, you have nowhere to go. A new look at an old word. To be rationally selfish is not to be a loner. It's to be a selective partner. It is not about destroying relationships, but about building them on the solid ground of mutual respect and admiration. A friendship based on shared values and reciprocal benefits is a healthy friendship. A relationship where one person is constantly sacrificing for the other is not. It's a form of emotional blackmail, a slow death for both individuals. Think of it this way. A truly selfish person knows that the best way to achieve their own happiness is to live in a world of productive, respectful, and independent people. A selfish person doesn't want a world of beggars and sycophants. They want a world of equals, of creators, thinkers, and innovators, so they have people to trade with, to learn from, and to love. The moment you accept the premise that your life belongs to you, everything changes. You stop asking for permission. You stop seeking validation. You stop making decisions based on what others will think. You start asking a new set of questions. What do I want? What will make me happy? What is the best use of my time, my energy, and my mind? This is the promise of rational selfishness. It's the promise of a life lived on your own terms. The reluctant benefactor. Liam had a dream. He wanted to build a company that designed and sold beautifully crafted minimalist furniture. It was more than a business. It was a passion, a vision for a world of elegant simplicity. He worked every day after his dreary 9-to-5 job, sketching designs, sourcing materials, and building prototypes in his small garage. He was getting close to a breakthrough. He had a few pieces ready for a local craft fair, a chance to show the world his work and secure his first orders. Then came the call. It was his mother, a kind but perpetually worried woman. "Liam," she began, "your Aunt Carol is organizing a charity auction for the local homeless shelter. She was wondering if you would donate one of your pieces. It would mean so much to the community." Liam's stomach clenched. A donated piece would mean giving away a significant amount of his limited resources. It meant losing a potential sale, a chance to make a name for himself. He knew the drill. The family would praise his generosity. His mother would say how proud she was. He'd be a good person. But he also knew what the real cost would be, a sacrifice of his own dream for the sake of an empty pat on the back. He hesitated, a knot of guilt tightening in his chest. He had been conditioned his entire life to say yes to these things, to be selfless, to give. But for the first time, he saw the real nature of the request. It was a demand for his sacrifice, a demand to give up the very thing he was trying to build. He took a deep breath. "Mom," he said, his voice shaky at first, "I can't. I need these pieces for the craft fair. I'm trying to get my business off the ground, and every piece I make is critical right now." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, a sigh. "I understand, Liam, it's just a shame. Aunt Carol was really counting on you." The call ended, and a wave of relief washed over him. The guilt was still there, a faint echo of the old programming, but it was overshadowed by a new feeling, the quiet satisfaction of having defended his own values. He was an entrepreneur, a creator, a man with a purpose. His first duty was to himself, to his work, to his dream. He understood that by building his own success, he would one day be in a position to help others not out of obligation, but out of choice, from a place of strength and abundance, not sacrifice and weakness. He walked back to his garage, a renewed sense of clarity and purpose fueling his hands as he began to sand the leg of a chair. He was being selfish, and it felt right. The vicious misconception of selfishness. The common, destructive view of selfishness is built on a few core fallacies. Society has taught us that being selfish means greed. This is the idea that a selfish person wants everything for themselves and will take it at any cost. But greed, in its truest form, is a bottomless pit. A truly greedy person is never satisfied, always in a state of want. Their actions are not based on a rational plan to achieve a goal, but on an endless, irrational craving. A rationally selfish person, on the other hand, knows what they want and why they want it. They seek to acquire value, not simply to accumulate things without purpose. Manipulation and disregard for others. This misconception paints the selfish person as a master manipulator who uses others as a means to an end, stepping on them to get ahead. This is a profoundly irrational and ultimately self-destructive path. A person who manipulates others creates a world of enemies and untrustworthy allies. They damage their own reputation and live in a constant state of suspicion. A rationally selfish person knows that their own life and happiness are tied to a world of independent, productive people. They seek to build relationships based on voluntary exchange and mutual respect, not coercion. They understand that a trade of value for value is far more beneficial than a one-sided act of exploitation. A lack of empathy or sympathy. The lie here is that a selfish person cannot care for others. The truth is that you can't genuinely care for others if you don't first value yourself. A person who constantly sacrifices their own well-being to please others is not acting out of genuine love. They are often acting out of a deep-seated need for validation or a fear of confrontation. Rational selfishness doesn't preclude empathy. It makes it real. When you value yourself, you can form genuine bonds with others based on shared values and mutual admiration, rather than obligation or pity. The virtue of rational selfishness. So what is selfishness, really? It is the pursuit of your own rational self-interest. It's the conscious choice to act for your own benefit, not out of a destructive impulse, but out of a principled commitment to your own life and happiness. Grounded in reason, your actions are guided by logic and long-term vision, not fleeting emotions. You make choices based on what will lead to your ultimate flourishing. For example, a student who chooses to study hard for an exam is being selfish. They are prioritizing their own academic future over the immediate gratification of a party. This isn't a selfless act, it's a rational one. Driven by personal values, you act to gain and keep the things that are important to you. These values are the bedrock of your life. They can be your career, your relationships, your health, your creative pursuits, anything that you've determined is worthy of your time and effort. The selfish person knows their values and pursues them with unwavering conviction. Voluntary cooperation. A rationally selfish person understands that other people are not tools to be used, but independent individuals with their own values and interests. They engage in relationships and business dealings based on mutual benefit. They trade value for value, whether that's a product for money, a service for a favor, or respect for friendship. This isn't a zero-sum game. It's a positive exchange where both parties walk away better off. In short, the popular image of the selfish person is a lie. The selfish person society warns you about is actually an irrational person, driven by whim and immediate gratification. The truly selfish person, the one I'm talking about, is a person of integrity, purpose, and reason. They are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the innovators, and the builders who, by living for themselves, create a world of value for everyone. We've all been taught that it's a vice, the root of all evil, but that's a lie. The selfishness we are warned about is irrational, short-sighted, and ultimately self-destructive. It's the greedy child who snatches a toy, the manipulative boss who uses people as pawns. This is not true selfishness. The concept you need to understand is rational egoism. This is a philosophy that holds that the only moral purpose of your life is to live it for yourself. It means prioritizing your own well-being, your own happiness, and your own values, not as an act of disregard for others, but as a fundamental commitment to yourself. The core tenets of rational egoism. Rational egoism is built on three essential pillars. The primacy of the individual. You, as an individual, are the ultimate purpose of your own life. You are not a means to an end for anyone else's happiness or for some abstract, greater good. Your life is yours to live, and your happiness is the highest moral purpose. The guiding light of reason. Rational egoism is not about acting on a whim or a fleeting emotion. It is a philosophy of reason. You must use your mind to identify your values and to make decisions that will lead to your long-term flourishing. This means thinking, planning, and acting with a clear purpose, not with a blind impulse. The foundation of values. Your life is driven by your values, the things you act to gain and keep. These could be a career you love, a passion project, a fulfilling relationship, or financial independence. A rational egoist has the courage to identify their own values, to pursue them relentlessly, and to refuse to sacrifice them for the sake of others' demands or expectations. Rational egoism versus common misconceptions. It is crucial to differentiate rational egoism from the common misconceptions of selfishness. It's not about harming others. A rational egoist understands that their own well-being is best served in a world of independent, productive people. They don't seek to exploit or harm others. Instead, they build relationships and business dealings on the basis of voluntary exchange and mutual benefit. They trade value for value, whether that's a product for money or friendship for friendship. It's not about greed. Greed is an insatiable, irrational craving for more. A rational egoist, however, seeks to acquire specific values for specific reasons. They want wealth to fund a project, not simply to accumulate it without purpose. They pursue success to achieve their goals, not to simply outdo others. It's not a license for anarchy. While rational egoism places the individual first, it does not advocate for a world without rules. It is a philosophy of individual rights, which means respecting the rights of others just as you demand they respect yours. A society of rational egoists would be a society of producers, traders, and creators, where individuals flourish and contribute to a vibrant, prosperous world, not a chaotic jungle where everyone is out for themselves. In short, rational egoism is the moral framework for a life of purpose. It is a philosophy that demands you take ownership of your own life, guided by reason and driven by your own values. It is the uncompromising demand that you live for yourself. Chapter 2. The Moral Case for Selfishness. You have been told that morality is the art of self-sacrifice, that a good person is one who gives up their desires, their time, and their life for the benefit of others. This is not a moral code, it's a death warrant. The true foundation of a moral life isn't sacrifice, it's self-interest. To live is to have values. To be alive is to pursue and protect those values. A plant turns toward the sun, an animal hunts for food. These aren't selfless acts, they are acts of self-preservation. Human beings, with their unique capacity for reason, pursue values on a far grander scale. We build businesses, create art, seek knowledge, and fall in love. Every one of these actions is driven by a desire to enhance our own lives. A moral life, therefore, is one that aligns with your nature as a living, thinking being. Your primary moral responsibility is to your own life and well-being. This is not a call to be a parasite, living off the efforts of others. It is a demand to be a producer, a creator, a self-sustaining entity whose happiness is the ultimate reward. The destructive myth of altruism. Altruism, the doctrine that you must live for others, is a direct contradiction to the nature of life itself. When taken to its logical conclusion, it demands that you surrender your judgment, your values, and your life to the whims of others. It turns a human being into a sacrificial animal whose sole purpose is to serve. This isn't just an impractical philosophy, it's a destructive one. Societies built on the premise of altruism have inevitably led to stagnation and oppression. When the most capable individuals are forced to sacrifice their efforts for the least capable, progress grinds to a halt. The innovator is shackled by the need to serve, and the entrepreneur is punished for their success. Think of the great creators throughout history: Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Marie Curie. Did they pursue their work out of a selfless desire to serve humanity? No. They were driven by a profound, selfish passion for their own vision. Their joy was in the challenge, the creation, the achievement. In pursuing their own goals, they created technologies and discoveries that changed the world. Their self-interest was the engine of their progress, and their success was a benefit to all. The virtue of self-interest. The moral case for selfishness is simple. Life is the ultimate standard of value. Your life is a precious, finite resource, and it is your moral duty to make the most of it. To live for yourself is to embrace reason. You use your mind to make decisions that lead to your flourishing. You don't act on unthinking impulses or on the demands of others. Pursue your values. You identify what is important to you, and you dedicate your energy to achieving it. You build your career, your relationships, and your life according to your own standards. Achieve happiness. You see your own happiness not as a fleeting emotion, but as the ultimate moral purpose of your life. It is the reward for a life well lived, a life of purpose and integrity. To be moral is not to be a martyr. It is to be a creator, a thinker, and a doer. It is to live with unwavering purpose, guided by your own judgment. Your life is yours, and your happiness is the highest good. Extreme selflessness. Extreme altruism, a doctrine that demands constant self-sacrifice for the sake of others, can cripple both individual lives and the progress of society. It's a moral framework that, when taken to its logical conclusion, is not only impractical but also deeply destructive. Undermining individual flourishing. Altruism, at its core, is the antithesis of individual flourishing. When you are told that your life is a tool for others, you lose the drive to pursue your own passions and values. Loss of self-worth. Extreme altruism teaches that your value comes from your ability to serve others, not from your own character or achievements. This can lead to a state of perpetual guilt and a feeling that you're never doing enough. The individual's sense of self-worth becomes entirely dependent on external validation, leading to emotional and psychological fragility. Erosion of purpose. A life dedicated solely to the needs of others is a life without its own purpose. You become a means to an end, a blank slate waiting for someone else's demands. This lack of personal purpose can lead to burnout, depression, and a complete loss of identity. Neglect of personal growth. To be an effective helper, you must first be a capable, self-sufficient person. Extreme altruism, however, demands that you prioritize others' needs, often at the expense of your own education, health, and development. This creates a vicious cycle where the altruist becomes less and less capable of offering genuine help, as they have sacrificed the very tools that would make them effective. Undermining societal progress. A society built on a foundation of extreme altruism is a society that stagnates. It's a system that punishes the capable and rewards the incapable, ensuring that no real progress can be made. Suppression of innovation. Innovation and progress are driven by individuals pursuing their own vision. The great leaps in science, technology, and art were not made by people who sacrificed their ambitions for others. They were made by individuals who had the conviction to pursue their own interests and the genius to bring their ideas to life. In a society that demands altruism, these ambitious individuals are either forced to abandon their projects or are criticized for not being selfless enough, effectively killing the engine of progress. Inefficient resource allocation. Altruism often leads to impulsive, emotional decisions rather than rational, calculated ones. Money, time, and resources are often directed to the most visible or emotionally compelling causes, not the ones that would have the greatest long-term impact. The result is a society with a chaotic, inefficient system of resource allocation, where genuine problems are often left unaddressed. Creation of a dependent society. A society that promotes altruism as the highest virtue creates a culture of dependency. When the capable are expected to serve the incapable, and the incapable are taught to expect this service, a cycle of dependence and resentment is formed. The capable resent being taken from, and the incapable resent their dependency. This erodes social trust and creates a weak, fragile society where everyone is a victim or a would-be victim. Life as the standard of value. Life is the ultimate standard of value because it is the prerequisite for all other values. All goals, desires, and actions, from building a business to forming a friendship, are only possible for a living organism. Therefore, the fundamental moral choice is to live. The moral rightness of living for oneself stems from this reality. Your primary moral responsibility is to sustain and enhance your own life, not to sacrifice it. All of morality is built on a simple question: what is the ultimate good? The common answer, often tied to a deity or a social construct, is a dead end. The only rational answer is life. To value something is to act to gain and keep it. Without life, there is nothing to gain and nothing to keep. A rock has no values. A plant, in a simple way, has the value of sunlight and water, which it acts to acquire. For a human being, the value of life is not just biological survival. It is a life lived to its fullest potential, a life of reason, purpose, and happiness. This is the only rational standard by which to judge our actions. An action is moral if it sustains and enhances your life. It is immoral if it harms or destroys it. The moral rightness of living for oneself. Given that life is the ultimate value, the only moral course of action is to live for oneself. This isn't a license for reckless abandon. It's a moral imperative to be a rational, self-interested being. Self-preservation is the first law. Every living thing is an end in itself. To live is to have a purpose, your own existence. To argue that your life should be spent as a means to an end for others is to advocate for your own destruction. It's a moral framework that asks you to be a martyr, which is a denial of life itself. You are the beneficiary of your values. The things you create, the joy you feel, the knowledge you gain, these are all values for you. When you work to build a business, you're not doing it for some abstract society. You're doing it to create wealth and purpose for yourself. The happiness and fulfillment you derive from this process are the moral reward for your efforts. The rejection of sacrifice. Living for oneself means rejecting the notion that sacrifice is a virtue. Sacrifice, in its truest form, is the surrender of a greater value for a lesser one. To sacrifice your career for a demanding relative or your well-being for a destructive relationship is not a moral act, it's a moral failure. It is an act against your own life. In a world where life is the ultimate value, living for oneself is not just permissible, it's the only moral choice. It is the uncompromising demand to honor your own existence and to live a life of purpose, integrity, and happiness. Chapter 3. The Role of Reason and Individualism. The life of a truly selfish person is not a life of whim or blind impulse. It is a life of unwavering purpose, guided by a single, uncompromising master, reason. This is the core of rational selfishness. It's the recognition that your mind is your only tool for survival and flourishing. Without reason, you are adrift, a slave to your emotions, your instincts, and the opinions of others. You are not an individual, you are a creature of habit, a product of your environment. Reason as your guiding principle. To be rationally selfish is to use your mind to its fullest capacity. Every decision you make, from the career you choose to the person you love, must be a product of conscious thought. This is not to say that you should ignore your feelings. Emotions can be powerful motivators, but they must be grounded in and checked by reality. An emotion that is not rooted in reason is a lie. Thinking long-term, a person who acts on impulse might steal to get a quick buck, but a rational person understands the long-term consequences: jail time, a ruined reputation, and the inability to build a life of integrity. Reason demands that you consider the future, not just the present. Integrity with reality. Your ideas and beliefs must align with the facts of reality. If you want to build a business, you must study the market, understand your product, and calculate your costs. You cannot simply wish your way to success. Reason demands that you confront the world as it is, not as you wish it were. The rejection of the unearned. Reason teaches you that value is not a gift, it is a creation. You must earn your living, your relationships, and your self-respect. The person who demands something for nothing is not acting in their own self-interest. They are a parasite, and a parasite's life is always precarious and ultimately empty. This use of reason is what separates the rational egoist from the common caricature of the selfish person. The common caricature is a person of whim, a person who acts on the immediate, irrational desire. The rational egoist is a person of thought, a person who acts on a well-defined purpose. The cornerstone of individualism. The commitment to reason leads directly to the virtue of individualism. Individualism is not just about being alone. It's about the conviction that the individual is the ultimate unit of value. The individual is the source of all thought, all creation, and all progress. The combination of reason and individualism is the engine of a life well lived. It is the commitment to thinking for yourself and living for yourself. It is the uncompromising demand that you be the master of your own destiny and the ultimate beneficiary of your own life. Individualism is the moral stance that the individual is the ultimate unit of value and the sole possessor of their own life. It is, by its very nature, a rejection of collectivism and conformity, which are philosophies that subordinate the individual to the group. The rejection of collectivism. Collectivism is the idea that the group, whether it's the family, the community, or the state, is more important than the individual. It preaches that your purpose is to serve the collective, to sacrifice your own interests for the greater good. Individualism stands in direct opposition to this. The group has no mind. The most fundamental flaw of collectivism is that it treats the group as if it were a single, conscious entity with its own rights and needs. But a group is nothing more than a collection of individuals. The group doesn't think, doesn't create, and doesn't feel. Only an individual can do these things. To surrender your judgment to the group is to surrender it to a consensus, a vote, or a mob, a faceless entity with no mind of its own. The sacrifice of the productive. Collectivism creates a moral framework where the most capable and productive individuals are seen as a resource to be exploited. Their achievements and their wealth are not seen as their own, but as something to be taken and redistributed to the less capable. This is a moral inversion that punishes success and rewards mediocrity. The primacy of rights. Individualism is built on the foundation of individual rights, particularly the right to your own life and property. It holds that no person or group has the right to demand your sacrifice. This is not a philosophy of anarchy. It is a philosophy of justice, where each person is responsible for their own life and respects the same in others. The rejection of conformity. Conformity is the act of aligning your thoughts, beliefs, and actions with a group to gain acceptance or avoid conflict. It is the practical application of collectivism, the way in which the philosophy of the group is enforced on the individual. The fear of ostracism. Conformity is driven by a profound fear. The fear of being alone, of being rejected, of being labeled an outcast. It is a psychological defense mechanism that prevents you from thinking for yourself. It's easier to go along with the crowd than to face the disapproval of your peers. But a life lived in fear is not a life lived at all. The stagnation of thought. Progress is born from dissent, from the individual who looks at the world and sees a better way. The genius who creates the light bulb is not a conformist. They are an individual who is willing to think a new thought and stand against the opinions of 1,000 people who say it cannot be done. Conformity, on the other hand, is the enemy of progress. It is a demand to keep things as they are, to think as others think, and to stifle any new idea that might upset the status quo. Authenticity and integrity. To be an individualist is to be authentic. It is to have the integrity to live in accordance with your own values and beliefs, regardless of what others think. It is the moral courage to be yourself, to be a person of conviction, and to refuse to let the opinions of others dictate your life. The foundation of mutual benefit. There is no conflict between self-interest and cooperation when both are grounded in voluntary mutual benefit. A rationally selfish individual understands that their own success is often enhanced by working with others. This isn't altruism. It's a strategic alliance where each person acts in their own best interest, and the result is a positive sum gain for everyone involved. Cooperation becomes a tool for self-interest when it is based on a voluntary exchange of value. You partner with others because you see a clear benefit for yourself, and they see a clear benefit for themselves. Trade of value. In business, you trade your product or service for a customer's money. Both parties are being selfish. The customer wants the value of your product, and you want the value of their money. This is the essence of a free market, a system built on 1,000,000 daily acts of rational self-interest. Shared goals. In a friendship or partnership, you cooperate to achieve a shared goal, like building a company or raising a family. You are both motivated by your own happiness and well-being, but you recognize that achieving your individual goals is more efficient and rewarding when you work together. Rejecting coercion and sacrifice. The balance between self-interest and cooperation breaks down when one person is forced to cooperate against their will. This is a form of coercion, not a voluntary agreement. Coercion versus cooperation. The selfless person who is forced to sacrifice their time and energy for a community project is not cooperating. They are being exploited. The selfish person, on the other hand, would only participate if they saw a direct benefit, whether it's gaining new skills, building a reputation, or simply enjoying the work. A positive-sum game. True cooperation is a positive-sum game where everyone wins. Altruism, in contrast, often leads to a zero-sum game, where one person's gain is seen as another's loss, and the moral demand is for the successful person to give up their excess to the less successful. This stifles productivity and creates a culture of resentment. Ultimately, the balance between self-interest and cooperation is not a tightrope act. It's a natural, symbiotic relationship where rational individuals come together to achieve more than they could alone, all while remaining firmly committed to their own lives and happiness. James the doctor or filmmaker. James, from a long line of doctors, was expected to follow suit. His grandfather founded the clinic, his father expanded it, and the family name was a pillar of the community. From a young age, the path was laid out for him: medical school, residency, and eventually, the family practice. Dinner table conversations revolved around new medical technologies, patient success stories, and the immense good they were doing for the community. James, however, found no joy in these discussions. His heart was not in medicine. What truly captivated him was the art of filmmaking. He spent his nights and weekends not studying anatomy, but watching classic films, deconstructing shots, and writing screenplays. The sterile world of a hospital felt suffocating. The vibrant, chaotic, and creative world of a film set felt like home. He felt a quiet thrill in the challenge of telling a story, in the collaborative effort of turning a script into a visual masterpiece. This was his passion, his obsession, and the only career path that promised him a sense of purpose. The pressure from his family was immense. "It's not a stable career," his father would say. "You have a duty to the family name, to the legacy." His mother's pleas were softer but no less effective. "Think of all the people you could help. You could do so much good." The weight of these expectations felt like a physical burden, a chain pulling him back toward a life he didn't want. He loved his family, and the thought of disappointing them filled him with a deep sense of guilt. One evening, after watching a particularly inspiring film, he made a decision. He had to be selfish. He had to choose his own life, his own happiness, and his own purpose. He walked into his father's study, where decades of medical journals lined the walls, and laid out his case. He explained his passion, his drive, and the fact that a life lived without purpose was no life at all. His father listened, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. The conversation was difficult, filled with long silences and the weight of shattered expectations. But James stood his ground, not out of defiance, but out of a profound commitment to himself. He was not rejecting his family, he was claiming his own life. He knew his decision was seen as a betrayal, an act of pure selfishness. But as he began the journey toward film school, he felt a lightness he had never known. He was no longer a dutiful son, he was a creator. He was no longer living someone else's dream, he was living his own. And in that act of courageous self-interest, he discovered a freedom and a sense of purpose that no amount of sacrifice could ever have given him. Part II, Living Selfishly in a Modern World. Chapter 4, Selfishness in Personal Life. The practical application of rational selfishness is about taking control of your personal life. It's about making conscious decisions that serve your well-being, not out of a destructive impulse, but out of a principled commitment to your own happiness. Here is some practical advice on how to apply rational selfishness to your personal life. Setting boundaries in relationships. The most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. A rationally selfish person understands that their relationships with others must be built on mutual respect and voluntary exchange, not on obligation or emotional blackmail. Identify your non-negotiables. Know what you will and will not tolerate. These are your boundaries. They could be about your time, your finances, your mental space, or your personal values. A rational person knows that crossing these lines is a violation of their self-interest and will not allow it. Communicate clearly and calmly. Boundaries are useless if they are not communicated. State your needs and limits directly and without apology. For example, "I need some alone time this evening," or "I cannot lend you money for that." Be prepared to enforce your boundaries. The true test of a boundary is your willingness to enforce it. If someone consistently disrespects your boundaries, you must be prepared to create distance or end the relationship. This is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of self-preservation. Pursuing hobbies and passions without guilt. A life of purpose is a life enriched by passion. A rationally selfish person pursues their hobbies and passions not as a guilty pleasure, but as a vital part of their existence. Reframe free time as personal time. Your time is your most valuable asset. It is not free to be filled by the demands of others. It is personal, and it is meant to be spent on things that bring you joy, challenge you, and help you grow. Recognize the value of your passions. Your hobbies and passions are not trivial. They are what make you a unique and interesting individual. They contribute to your mental health, your creativity, and your sense of self-worth. To neglect them is to neglect a vital part of your life. Say no to unnecessary obligations. Do not agree to social engagements, favors, or volunteer work that will prevent you from pursuing your passions. Say no to the trivial so you can say yes to the things that matter most to you. Prioritizing mental and physical health. Your mind and body are the tools you use to live your life. A rationally selfish person takes care of these tools with the same seriousness they would a business investment. View health as a strategic investment. Your health is not a chore. It is an investment in your future. Prioritize sleep, exercise, and good nutrition not for a fleeting aesthetic, but to have the energy and mental clarity to achieve your goals. Set aside time for mental clarity. Rational selfishness requires a clear mind. Dedicate time to activities that help you think, reflect, and recharge, whether that's meditation, journaling, or simply spending time in nature. Reject unearned guilt. Society often tells us that taking time for ourselves is selfish in a negative way. You must reject this unearned guilt. Taking a mental health day, or choosing to get a massage, or simply taking a break is not a sign of weakness. It's an act of self-preservation. It is a necessary component of a productive and happy life. The importance of self-esteem and rejecting unearned guilt. Rational selfishness is impossible without a strong sense of self-esteem. Self-esteem is not an emotion, but a deep-seated conviction that you are a capable and worthy individual. It is the belief that you are fit to live and deserve to be happy. This isn't a gift you are given. It's a value you earn through your actions and your commitment to a purposeful life. Self-esteem as a moral foundation. A person with true self-esteem doesn't need to manipulate or exploit others to feel good about themselves. They don't need validation from the group. Their worth is derived from their own mind and their own achievements. This is the moral foundation of a selfish life. You have nothing to prove to others, only to yourself. Rejecting unearned guilt. The greatest weapon used against the individual is guilt. From a young age, we are taught to feel guilty for pursuing our own interests, for having ambition, and for not putting others first. This is a form of emotional blackmail designed to control you. Unearned guilt is the feeling that you owe something to others simply for existing. Identifying the source of guilt. Most guilt is unearned. You feel guilty for saying no, for taking time for yourself, or for not meeting someone else's expectations. These feelings are not a sign of moral failure. They are a sign that you have been conditioned to accept a moral code of sacrifice. The power of no. The most powerful tool against unearned guilt is the word no. When you say no to an unreasonable demand, you are not being selfish in a negative way. You are being honest and protective of your own life. You are refusing to be a sacrificial animal for someone else's benefit. Reclaiming your right to happiness. You have a right to your own life and your own happiness. You owe no one your time, your energy, or your resources simply because they exist. Reclaiming this right is the first step toward living a life of true self-interest and purpose. A life of rational selfishness demands that you are the primary beneficiary of your own life. To do this, you must have the courage to believe in your own worth and to reject the destructive lie that your existence is a debt you owe to others. Case study on selfishness in personal life. There comes a point in some people's lives when the weight of their world becomes too much to bear. When the choices made for others, the sacrifices, the compromises, the constant giving, finally drain them to a point of exhaustion. For Sarah, that breaking point was a quiet Tuesday morning. For years, she had been the unwavering pillar in her marriage to Mark. His career was a volatile roller coaster of high-stress deadlines and late nights. His emotions, a turbulent sea she was always expected to calm. Sarah's life was not her own. It was a supporting role in Mark's drama. She had given up her dreams of becoming a graphic designer, telling herself it was a small price to pay for a stable home. She learned to bite her tongue during Mark's tirades, convincing herself that love meant absorbing the blows. Her friends had slowly drifted away, tired of her constant excuses for Mark's behavior and his possessive demands on her time. Sarah was a ghost in her own house, defined only by her function as wife and emotional anchor. Her self-esteem was a crumbling ruin, built on the shifting sands of Mark's unpredictable approval. The Tuesday morning that changed everything began with a simple question. She had mentioned an online course on design she'd been considering, a small, tentative step toward reclaiming a part of herself. Mark's reaction was not a rejection, but a sigh, a world-weary, condescending sigh that spoke volumes. "Sarah, do you really have time for that?" he asked, his tone implying she was being selfish and frivolous. "I have a huge project this month. I need you focused here, not off on some pointless hobby." That sigh, that casual dismissal of her nascent dream, hit her with the force of a physical blow. In that moment, the dam of her long-suppressed self-interest broke. She saw with chilling clarity that her life was not a partnership but a service agreement. She was a resource to be managed, not a person to be valued. The idea of living another year, another month, another week in that gilded cage was no longer an option. It was a sentence she could not serve. The decision was not easy. It was wrenching. Leaving meant facing an uncertain future alone, confronting her fears of failure, and enduring the inevitable criticism from family and friends who would see her actions as selfish. She was told she was abandoning her vows, destroying a family, and not trying hard enough. But for the first time in years, she was a person making a choice for herself. She wasn't just reacting to Mark's needs, she was acting on her own. She moved into a small apartment, the silence of which was initially deafening. But with each passing day, that silence began to fill with the sounds of her own life. She enrolled in the design course, spending late nights sketching, her mind buzzing with creative energy she had long forgotten. She reconnected with old friends, rebuilding relationships that had been sacrificed on the altar of her marriage. She started running, not to lose weight, but to feel the strength in her own body. This was not a story of a woman becoming heartless. It was a story of a woman becoming whole. Sarah did not leave Mark out of malice, but out of a profound and necessary act of self-preservation. She had to be selfish, not in the sense of harming him, but in the sense of refusing to be harmed any longer. She prioritized her mental health, her creative spirit, and her future over the demands of a toxic relationship. Her self-interest was the fuel that allowed her to escape a life of quiet desperation and build one of purpose and fulfillment. It was a choice that seemed brutal to others, but it was, for her, the only moral choice she could make. Chapter 5. Selfishness in Work and Career. In the professional world, rational self-interest is not about exploiting others, but about recognizing your own value and acting on it with clarity and purpose. It is the core of a thriving career, where your work isn't just a job, but a direct extension of your values and ambitions. It's the engine that drives success, innovation, and genuine fulfillment. Negotiating for fair compensation. Fair compensation is not a handout. It is the just reward for the value you create. To negotiate effectively, you must first understand your own worth, not just what the market dictates, but what your skills, experience, and dedication genuinely command. This is an act of rational self-interest, where you refuse to accept less than you deserve. Know your value. Research salaries for your role, industry, and location. Understand the unique skills you bring to the table, the efficiencies you create, the problems you solve, the revenue you generate. When you enter a negotiation, you are not asking for a favor. You are presenting a case for why you are a sound investment. Be prepared to walk away. The ultimate leverage in any negotiation is the ability to say no. If the offer doesn't reflect your value, you must be willing to pursue other opportunities. This isn't a threat. It's a demonstration of self-respect. Your time and effort are finite resources, and true self-interest demands you allocate them to the highest bidder. Frame the conversation around value. Shift the focus from your needs to their gain. Instead of saying, "I need more money," say, "My salary expectations are aligned with the value I will bring to this role by increasing efficiency and driving project success." This makes your request a logical business decision for them, not an emotional plea. Choosing a career aligned with personal values. Too many people are trapped in careers that are a mismatch for their deepest values, leading to a life of quiet resentment. Rational self-interest dictates that your work should be a source of pride and purpose, not a burden endured for a paycheck. Define your values first. Before you choose a career, you must define what a fulfilling life looks like to you. Do you value creativity, autonomy, security, or social impact? A job that offers high pay but stifles your creativity is a poor choice if creativity is your highest value. Seek opportunities, not just jobs. A job is a task you perform for money. An opportunity is a chance to apply your unique talents and grow. Seek out roles that allow you to use your natural abilities and passions. This isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for long-term psychological health and professional success. Prioritize fulfillment over prestige. A prestigious title or a well-known company name is a poor substitute for a role that genuinely excites you. A career chosen out of a sense of obligation or for the approval of others is a direct assault on your rational self-interest. You are the ultimate authority on what brings you joy and purpose. Taking risks to innovate or start a business. The greatest achievements in history were born from the decisions of individuals who had the courage to bet on themselves. Innovation and entrepreneurship are the purest expressions of rational self-interest. They are the act of creating something new, driven by the conviction that your vision is valuable and worth fighting for. Embrace the risk as a rational investment. Starting a business or pursuing an innovative idea isn't a reckless gamble. It's a calculated risk based on a belief in your own ability to succeed. You are investing your time, money, and energy into a future that you will create. The fear of failure is natural, but rational self-interest demands you weigh the potential for monumental success against the cost of remaining stagnant. Focus on problem solving. All successful businesses solve a problem. Identify a need in the market that your unique skills can address. Your self-interest is served by creating a product or service that benefits others, and their self-interest is served by buying it. This is the beautiful symmetry of capitalism, driven by mutual benefit. Be the first to believe in your idea. Society may criticize your decision to leave a secure job or pursue an unconventional path. The pressure to conform is immense. However, if your idea is sound, if your plan is rational, and if you are driven by a genuine passion, your own conviction must be the ultimate judge. You are the only person who can bring your vision to life. Workplace loyalty. The idea of a selfless workplace culture is a myth. It is a carefully constructed narrative designed to manipulate employees into a state of voluntary servitude, convincing them to sacrifice their own rational self-interest for the perceived good of the company. This culture celebrates overwork and unquestioning loyalty as virtues, but in reality, it's a one-way street that drains individuals of their vitality, ambition, and personal life. The central problem with this model is its fundamental contradiction. It demands that you place the collective's needs above your own, but who defines the collective's needs? It's never the employees, it's the leadership, the shareholders, and the company itself. Your sacrifice becomes a tool for their profit, not a noble act of shared purpose. You are not a partner in a great endeavor. You are a resource to be exploited until you are burned out. The overwork illusion. Overwork is presented as a badge of honor, a sign of dedication and commitment. Late nights, working weekends, and responding to emails at all hours are not only tolerated, but actively encouraged and praised. This creates an environment where performance is measured by presence, not by productivity. The employee who efficiently completes their work and leaves on time is often seen as less committed than the one who stays late, even if the latter is less effective. This illusion serves a few key purposes. It creates a sense of guilt. Employees are made to feel that if they aren't constantly giving more, they are failing the team. This guilt is a powerful motivator, compelling them to sacrifice their personal time and health to avoid being seen as a slacker. It normalizes unsustainable behavior. When overwork becomes the standard, it leads to burnout, stress, and a decline in mental and physical health. Companies benefit from the short-term burst of energy, but they do not bear the long-term cost of employee exhaustion, which often leads to turnover and a loss of valuable talent. It stifles innovation. A mind perpetually exhausted from overwork cannot be a creative or innovative one. True breakthroughs require time for rest, reflection, and the pursuit of interests outside of work. A selfless culture that demands your entire being leaves no room for the intellectual and emotional recharge necessary for genuine creativity. Loyalty as a weapon. In this culture, loyalty is often defined not as mutual respect and trust, but as unconditional allegiance. You are expected to stay with the company even when your salary is stagnant, your opportunities for growth are limited, or your personal values are being compromised. This kind of loyalty is not a two-way street, it's a shackle. It discourages rational career management. An employee who stays out of loyalty might miss out on a better-paying job that offers more responsibility and a healthier work-life balance. This selfless act of staying loyal is a direct assault on their own professional and financial growth. It breeds complacency. When an employee's loyalty is rewarded with a pat on the back rather than a raise or promotion, they learn that their devotion is more valuable than their results. This can lead to a sense of entitlement from the company and a slow erosion of an employee's ambition. It is a tool of control. A company that fosters this kind of loyalty can make employees feel like they are betraying a family if they leave. This emotional manipulation is designed to make it harder for individuals to make a rational decision that is in their own best interest. Ultimately, a selfless workplace culture is an elaborate facade. The only loyalty that matters is to your own life and your own goals. True professional fulfillment is not found in sacrificing yourself for an organization, but in finding a role where your self-interest aligns perfectly with the value you create, leading to a relationship of mutual respect and benefit. A tech worker who leaves a secure job to launch a startup. For Mark, a senior software engineer at a sprawling tech giant, life was a perfectly calibrated machine. He had a great salary, full benefits, and a title that commanded respect at dinner parties. His days were a predictable cycle of meetings, coding, and team lunches in the company cafeteria. He had everything he was told he should want, yet a persistent, low-level dread gnawed at him. The work was meaningless, a small cog in a giant corporate wheel, a single line of code in a project that, in the grand scheme, would make little difference. He was a caretaker of someone else's vision, an employee, not a creator. The idea for his own project had been a quiet obsession for 2 years. He had spent his nights and weekends meticulously building a platform to simplify supply chain logistics for small businesses, a tool he knew could genuinely help people. But to leave his secure job for this unproven idea seemed insane to everyone around him. His parents warned him against the reckless decision, reminding him of the stability he was throwing away. His colleagues, who admired his work, saw his ambition as a betrayal of the comfortable and safe path. "You're crazy to walk away from this," one of them said, gesturing to the gleaming campus. "What if it fails?" That question, "what if it fails?" was a constant echo in his mind. But a more profound, more terrifying question began to emerge. What if it succeeds, but I never try? That was the true failure. The failure to honor his own potential, the failure to act on a vision that was his alone. He realized that the security of his job was a different kind of prison, one built on the fear of risk, where his soul was slowly atrophying. The day he handed in his resignation, the relief was immediate and overwhelming. It was a choice born of radical self-interest, a decision to bet on himself, not for the approval of others, but for his own sense of purpose and fulfillment. The first few months were brutal. The long nights of coding were no longer a hobby, but a desperate race against a dwindling savings account. There were days of doubt, of technical roadblocks, and of feeling profoundly alone. He ate ramen, worked from his tiny apartment, and endured the thinly veiled pity of former colleagues. His breakthrough came a year later when his platform secured its first major client. It was a small, local manufacturer, but to Mark, it was a validation of his vision. The tool he had built was saving them time and money, and for the first time, he felt the direct, tangible impact of his work. This was not a line of code in a massive project. It was his creation, solving a real problem for real people. The criticism didn't stop overnight, but it began to fade as his company grew. The same people who had called him crazy now asked him for advice. His parents, who had been so worried, now bragged about his success. Mark's story was not one of blind luck, but of a rational decision to align his life with his deepest values. He chose the uncertainty of freedom over the predictability of stagnation. He understood that true security is not a steady paycheck, but the unshakable confidence in your own ability to create value and overcome challenges. A confidence forged only through the courage to act in your own self-interest. Chapter 6. Selfishness and Money. The pursuit of wealth is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. It is a tool for achieving personal goals, a form of freedom, and a symbol of value created. Wealth in and of itself holds no inherent moral value. Its worth is determined by what it allows you to do and become. Wealth as a means to freedom. The primary defense of wealth is that it buys freedom, not just the freedom from want, but the freedom to pursue your values without constraint. Financial independence allows you to make decisions based on your own rational judgment, rather than being dictated by a need for a paycheck. Autonomy. Wealth gives you the ability to say no. No to a job that compromises your values, no to a toxic relationship you're financially dependent on, and no to societal expectations that don't align with your goals. It allows you to choose your work, your partners, and your lifestyle on your own terms. Time. The pursuit of wealth, when successful, buys back your time. It frees you from the drudgery of work you dislike, enabling you to invest your most valuable resource into passions, personal development, and relationships that matter to you. Wealth as a symbol of value. In a free market, money is a symbol of value created. It is an abstract representation of the tangible goods, services, and ideas you have provided to others. The pursuit of wealth, therefore, is an indirect pursuit of excellence. Meritocracy. A person who earns great wealth in a capitalist system has generally done so by creating products or services that others desire. A successful entrepreneur, a brilliant artist, or an innovative engineer is rewarded financially for the value they bring to the world. Their wealth is not a sign of greed, but a testament to their skill and the value of their contribution. A measure of contribution. Money is the mechanism by which society acknowledges and rewards competence. It is a universal medium of exchange that allows you to measure the impact of your work. The person who earns more money has, by and large, created more value for more people. Addressing the stigma. The societal stigma around wealth and ambition is largely rooted in a collectivist mindset that views self-interest as a sin. This perspective sees wealth as a zero-sum game, where one person's gain is another's loss. This is a false premise. In a free market, wealth is created, not seized. When an inventor creates a new technology, they become wealthy, but they also create value for everyone who uses their invention. The value is not stolen, it is generated. The ambition to be wealthy is a rational ambition, because it is an ambition to have the power to live your life on your own terms. It is the desire to be a producer, a creator, and an owner of your own destiny. Financial independence. Financial independence is a state of mind and a practical reality that serves as a powerful tool for freedom and self-actualization. It's not just about having a large bank account. It's about having enough resources to make choices based on your values and passions, rather than on financial necessity. This frees you from the shackles of a job you hate or a situation you're forced to endure, and gives you the agency to pursue your highest potential. Freedom from constraint. Financial independence is the ultimate form of freedom from constraint. Most people are bound by the need to earn a paycheck to cover their living expenses. This creates a system of dependence where an employer or a market can dictate your choices. If you need a job to survive, you must accept its terms: the hours, the location, the tasks, and the culture. This can force you to compromise your personal goals and sacrifice your time for others. Freedom to choose. With financial independence, you can say no to a job that stifles your creativity and yes to a project you are passionate about, even if it doesn't pay as well. You can leave a toxic work environment without fear of losing your home. You can take a break from work to travel, learn a new skill, or spend more time with family. Freedom from fear. Financial independence provides a buffer against the unpredictability of life. It's a safety net that protects you from the sudden loss of a job, a medical emergency, or an unexpected expense. This peace of mind allows you to take calculated risks and pursue ambitious goals without the constant dread of financial ruin. The path to self-actualization. Self-actualization, a concept rooted in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is the process of realizing your full potential. It's the drive to become everything you are capable of becoming. While financial independence doesn't guarantee self-actualization, it is a crucial prerequisite for it. Maslow argued that basic needs like safety and security must be met before an individual can pursue higher-level needs like self-esteem and self-actualization. Financial independence provides that security. Investing in yourself. Once your basic needs are met, you have the resources to invest in your own growth. You can afford to take courses, start a business, or pursue a creative endeavor without the pressure of a deadline or a budget. This allows you to focus on the work itself and on the joy of mastery, rather than on the monetary return. Living an authentic life. Financial independence gives you the time and space to discover your true passions and to align your life with your deepest values. Without the pressure of a daily grind, you can reflect on what genuinely matters to you. It allows you to build a life on your own terms, not one defined by others' expectations or the market's demands. It's a pursuit of purpose, not a pursuit of money. Stigma around wealth and ambition. The societal stigma surrounding wealth and ambition is a pervasive, anti-individualist ideology that frames success as a moral failing. It's an implicit attack on the very idea that a person has the right to live for their own sake and to enjoy the fruits of their labor. This stigma is often rooted in a false view of money and a misunderstanding of how wealth is created. The flawed premise of wealth as a zero-sum game. The primary source of this stigma is the belief that wealth is a finite resource. This leads to the flawed conclusion that one person's wealth must have been taken from another. This idea turns the pursuit of ambition into a moral crime, where the successful person is seen as a greedy thief who has benefited at the expense of others. In reality, wealth is not a fixed pie to be divided. It is something that must be created. The entrepreneur who builds a successful company, the artist who creates a masterpiece, or the scientist who invents a new technology is not taking wealth from others. They are adding new value to the world. Their success is a positive-sum game, where the creator, the employees, and the customers all benefit from the new value created. The societal stigma, however, refuses to acknowledge this act of creation, choosing instead to focus on the envy and resentment of those who did not produce it. Money as a symbol of value creation. Money is not the root of all evil. It is the tool of exchange that makes a civilized society possible. It is a symbol of the principle that men who wish to deal with one another must do so by trade, giving value for value. A moral barometer. Money is the material shape of a productive life. When a person earns wealth through their own effort, skill, and judgment, that money is a physical representation of the value they have created. It is a badge of honor, a symbol of their competence and integrity. A mechanism of justice. Money allows for the voluntary exchange of values. It's the mechanism that enables the man of ability to be rewarded for his work. The person who creates a superior product is rewarded more because more people choose to buy it, thus validating its worth. This system, when free from force or fraud, is fundamentally just. The societal stigma against wealth and ambition, therefore, is a verdict not on the rich, but on the very process of value creation. It's a refusal to acknowledge that human progress is driven by the productive, ambitious individuals who refuse to play it safe. By shamming wealth, society shames the very virtues that make it possible: reason, productivity, and independence. It's a condemnation of life itself, because life requires constant, productive action, and money is the tool that makes that action possible on a grand, societal scale. Practical tips: budgeting, investing, and valuing one's own labor. Living by rational self-interest requires a practical approach to your finances, ensuring your money serves your life, not the other way around. This means mastering budgeting, making your money work for you through investing, and having a clear-eyed view of your own value. These are not just administrative tasks, they are acts of self-ownership. Budgeting as a tool for freedom. Many people see a budget as a restrictive cage, but in reality, it's a tool for clarity and control. A rational budget is not about deprivation. It's about aligning your spending with your values. Define your values first. Before you track a single dollar, identify what's truly important to you. Do you value travel, career growth, or creative pursuits? Your budget should reflect these priorities. For example, if you value education, a significant portion of your discretionary income might go toward courses and books. If you value personal freedom, you might prioritize saving for financial independence. Track everything without judgment. For a month, write down every single expense. This isn't about shamming yourself for a latte. It's about gaining an objective view of where your money is actually going. You can't steer a ship if you don't know where it's already headed. Allocate your resources. Once you have a clear picture, start allocating your income deliberately. The goal is to spend on what you value and cut back on what you don't. This isn't a sacrifice. It's a rational choice to funnel your resources toward what brings you the most fulfillment. Investing for your future self. Investing is the act of making your money work for you. It's an essential component of rational self-interest, as it's the most effective way to build wealth and secure your future autonomy. Start early. Time is your most powerful asset in investing. Thanks to compound interest, even small amounts invested early can grow into substantial sums over decades. The money you invest today will be far more valuable to your future self than the money you spend on a fleeting pleasure. Educate yourself. You don't need to be a financial expert, but you must understand the basics. Learn about index funds, which allow you to own a small piece of hundreds of companies, providing diversification and reducing risk. Avoid speculative gambles and get-rich-quick schemes. These are driven by emotion, not reason. Be a producer, not a consumer. When you invest in stocks, you are buying a piece of a company that produces a product or service. You become a small owner in the productive engine of society. This aligns your self-interest with the creation of value. Valuing one's own labor. Your labor is the most valuable resource you possess. It is the time, effort, and skill you trade for a living. To be selfish means to value this labor and to demand a just return for it. Know your worth. Never accept a salary or a rate without first understanding the market value of your skills. Research what others in your field are earning and be prepared to justify your worth with examples of your accomplishments and the value you bring. Negotiate, don't beg. When you negotiate your salary or rates, you are not asking for a favor. You are engaging in a trade, offering your unique abilities in exchange for fair compensation. Be direct, confident, and prepared to walk away if the offer is an insult to your value. Own your value creation. If your job relies on selling your time by the hour, consider how you can create a product or service that can be sold many times over. This is the difference between earning a living and building wealth. Owning your own means of production is the ultimate expression of valuing your own labor. Part III, Overcoming Objections and Shaping Society. Chapter 7, Addressing the Critics. The concept of rational selfishness faces a wall of common objections, all rooted in a misunderstanding of what it means to be truly self-interested. These objections paint selfishness as a destructive force, when in fact, it is the foundation of a moral and prosperous life. Selfishness destroys relationships. This objection assumes that relationships are built on self-sacrifice and one-sided giving. A selfless person, by this logic, is the ideal partner or friend. But a relationship built on sacrifice is not a partnership. It's an arrangement of exploitation and resentment. Rational selfishness, on the other hand, is the basis for genuine, healthy relationships. It is about mutual respect and voluntary exchange. You enter into a relationship because the other person brings value to your life, joy, intellectual stimulation, companionship. They do the same for you. Neither of you is a martyr. You are partners in a mutual trade of values. When you are rationally selfish, you set clear boundaries and refuse to be taken for granted. You will not sacrifice your own happiness for your partner, nor will you demand that they sacrifice theirs for you. This creates a relationship built on honesty, respect, and a shared purpose, rather than on obligation or emotional blackmail. Selfishness leads to societal collapse. This objection is based on the false premise that a society of self-interested individuals will devolve into chaos and conflict. It posits that a collective, selfless spirit is necessary to maintain order and cooperation. However, a society of rational, self-interested individuals is not a society of predators. It is a society of producers and traders. Each person, in pursuing their own goals, must offer a value to others to get what they want. A farmer wants a car, so they grow food to sell to the car manufacturer. The car manufacturer wants food, so they build cars to sell to the farmer. This voluntary exchange, driven by individual flourishing, is the engine of innovation and prosperity. A society built on a foundation of altruism, where individuals are expected to sacrifice for the greater good, is one that stifles progress. It disincentivizes ambition and punishes success, leading to stagnation and poverty. It is the individual, driven by a selfish desire to improve their own life, who creates the inventions and ideas that benefit all of society. Selfishness is immoral. This is the most fundamental objection, and it stems from a moral philosophy that defines morality as an act of self-sacrifice. It teaches that the good is to give up your own life, happiness, and values for others. This is the morality of death, not life. The rational self-interest philosophy argues that morality is about living a fulfilling life. The ultimate value is a person's own life. Therefore, the moral purpose of your life is to live it to the fullest. This requires you to be rational, to think for yourself, to act with integrity, and to pursue your own happiness. To live a moral life is to be the hero of your own story, not a supporting character in someone else's. It means rejecting unearned guilt and the idea that your life belongs to others. It is an unapologetic affirmation of your right to exist and to achieve your own personal vision of success and happiness. Self-sacrifice, far from being a moral virtue, is a betrayal of the one life you have to live. Debunking myths. The moral philosophy of rational selfishness, as advanced by Ayn Rand, directly challenges the most sacred cow of modern ethics: altruism. Altruism, in its purest form, demands that a person place the interests of others above their own. Rand argued that this is not a virtue but a form of moral slavery, and a logic that ultimately leads to ruin. The common myths surrounding selfishness and altruism can be debunked by looking at the logical consequences of their premises. Myth: altruism is a morally superior philosophy. The myth that altruism is a morally superior philosophy rests on the idea that the highest good is self-sacrifice. This implies that your life is not your own, but a resource to be spent for the benefit of others. Rand argues that this is a direct contradiction. Life is the ultimate standard of value, and morality should serve to enhance and protect that life. A moral code that demands you diminish yourself for others is anti-life. Example: a brilliant scientist is on the verge of a medical breakthrough. The altruist philosophy would demand that he give up his research to care for a sick family member, or to work on a less fulfilling job that helps more people in a more immediate, but less impactful, way. This would be considered a moral act. However, the rational egoist would argue that his moral duty is to use his mind to the fullest, to pursue his passion, and to create the value that only he can. By doing so, he not only fulfills his own life, but also creates a product that benefits countless others, a far greater good than the small-scale sacrifice altruism would demand. Myth: without altruism, society would descend into chaos. This myth suggests that without a moral obligation to care for others, individuals would prey on one another, leading to a breakdown of social order. It fails to recognize that cooperation and mutual benefit are the natural consequences of rational self-interest. Example: consider a successful businessman. He doesn't open a factory out of selfless concern for his community. He does it to make a profit. To achieve this, he must hire employees, paying them a wage they voluntarily accept. He must produce a product that customers want, at a price they are willing to pay. This network of voluntary exchange and mutual benefit is driven not by altruism, but by each individual's pursuit of their own self-interest. The employees get a paycheck, the customers get a product, and the owner gets a profit. All parties are better off than they were before. This is the logic of capitalism, a system based on rational self-interest, and it has created more wealth and prosperity than any altruistic society ever has. Myth: selfishness is inherently evil. This is the most common myth, a product of centuries of moral indoctrination. It conflates rational self-interest with the kind of short-sighted, irrational behavior often labeled selfish, such as greed, theft, and cruelty. These actions are not selfish, they are self-destructive. Example: a thief who steals from others is not acting selfishly. He is acting irrationally. He is depending on others to do the work and create the value that he can then steal. He is a parasite. His actions create a life of fear, instability, and a lack of true self-worth. His self-interest would be better served by becoming a productive member of society, creating his own value, and building a life of integrity and respect. This is the difference between rational self-interest, a long-term strategy for a fulfilling life, and irrational self-destruction, which is mistakenly labeled as selfishness. Chapter 8: Selfishness and Community. Rational selfishness, far from being a destructive force, is the bedrock of a productive and prosperous society. It fosters mutual respect through voluntary cooperation, drives the creation of wealth through trade, and fuels progress through innovation. A society of selfish individuals, acting in their own rational self-interest, is a society of producers, not parasites. Voluntary cooperation. The myth is that cooperation requires sacrifice. In a rational society, cooperation is an act of voluntary exchange where all parties gain. People don't cooperate for a greater good they have to sacrifice for. They cooperate because it is in their own interest to do so. A successful team, for example, is not a collection of martyrs, but a group of individuals whose skills and ambitions align. Each person contributes their unique talents to the project, not out of a sense of duty, but because it leads to a personal reward, be it a bonus, a promotion, or the pride of a job well done. This mutual self-interest creates a far more stable and dynamic collaboration than one based on forced obligation or guilt. Trade. Trade is the purest expression of rational self-interest in action. It is the act of exchanging value for value, where each party benefits. No one is forced to buy a product or a service. They do so because they believe it will improve their life. The butcher doesn't sell meat out of benevolence. He does it for profit. The customer doesn't buy meat to help the butcher. They do it to feed their family. The result is a system where the pursuit of personal gain leads to a general improvement in the standard of living for everyone involved. The entire market economy is built on this principle. Innovation. Innovation is the most powerful example of how rational selfishness benefits society. Every new technology, every medical cure, and every great work of art was born from an individual's selfish desire to create, to achieve, and to be rewarded for their effort. The inventor of the light bulb was not driven by a selfless desire to illuminate the world, but by his own ambition, his passion for discovery, and the desire for the recognition and wealth that would come from his success. This pursuit of personal triumph and recognition leads to breakthroughs that benefit all of humanity. Conversely, a society that punishes success and demands that creators sacrifice their genius for the collective good will see innovation stagnate. Why would a brilliant mind bother to create if the rewards are taken away and given to others? Mutual self-interest. Mutual self-interest is the engine of strong communities, not self-sacrifice. It is the recognition that two or more individuals, by cooperating voluntarily, can each achieve their own separate goals more effectively than they could alone. This principle applies universally, from the smallest partnership to the largest business, forming a stable foundation based on mutual benefit, not unearned obligation. Businesses. A business, at its core, is a community of individuals united by a shared, but selfish, interest in profit and production. The owner is not a selfless benefactor. They build a company to realize their vision and create wealth. The employees are not martyrs. They work for a salary and the opportunity for career growth. The customer is not a charity. They buy a product because it brings them value. Each person acts from a position of rational self-interest, and it is this very selfishness that makes the system work. The owner's selfish pursuit of profit compels them to create a high-quality product that customers want. The employee's selfish desire for a paycheck and a fulfilling career motivates them to do their best work. This is not a zero-sum game. Through this network of voluntary exchange, everyone benefits, and a productive community is formed. Friendships and partnerships. Genuine friendships are not built on sacrifice, but on a profound, mutual self-interest. You don't choose a friend out of a sense of duty. You choose them because they are of value to your life. They provide intellectual stimulation, joy, support, or a sense of shared purpose. A true friendship is an equal trade of values, a relationship where both people are enriched by the other's presence. In a healthy partnership, be it a romantic relationship or a creative collaboration, the dynamic is the same. Two individuals come together because their lives are better in tandem than they are apart. Each person's selfish pursuit of their own happiness and fulfillment is what makes the relationship strong. They respect their partner as an independent individual with their own values and goals, and they support those goals because their partner's happiness is a value to their own life. A relationship built on forced sacrifice will inevitably lead to resentment, as one person's life is consumed for the benefit of another. A relationship of mutual self-interest, however, is a celebration of two complete, sovereign individuals choosing to share their lives. Example, a community project. The idea that community projects must be driven by pure self-sacrifice is a myth. The strongest communities are those built on the foundation of mutual self-interest, where individuals contribute to a collective goal because it also serves their personal ambitions and values. A great example of this is the development of a shared community garden. The traditional view would frame a community garden as a selfless act of service, where people volunteer their time for the good of their neighbors. But the reality is far more powerful. The project is initiated by individuals who are, first and foremost, acting in their own self-interest. A young urban professional, tired of the sterile, corporate world, wants to connect with nature and learn a new skill. The community garden offers her a creative outlet and a chance to escape the digital grind. This is a selfish desire for personal fulfillment. An elderly neighbor, living alone, is looking for companionship and a reason to get out of the house. The garden provides a social hub and a way to stay active. His contribution is driven by a selfish desire to combat loneliness and maintain his health. A mother, concerned about her children's diet and screen time, wants to teach them where food comes from and get them involved in a physical activity. Her goal is to raise healthy, well-rounded children. This is a selfish, yet entirely rational parental ambition. Each of these individuals has a deeply personal, self-interested reason for joining the project. They are not martyrs. They are seeking to fulfill their own values, but their combined, individual efforts produce a collective success that none of them could achieve alone. Their selfish desires to learn, to socialize, and to parent effectively, when channeled through a shared project, create a vibrant community space. The garden produces fresh food for everyone, becomes a gathering place for social events, and fosters a sense of pride and ownership. This is not the result of self-sacrifice. It is the synergy of rational self-interest. The community project is a success precisely because it aligns with and amplifies the selfish goals of its members. Chapter 9. The Future of a Selfish Society. Envisioning a world where rational selfishness is the widely accepted moral default is not a utopian fantasy, but a logical extension of human nature and reason. It's a world free from the moral coercion of altruism, where individuals are encouraged to live for their own sake and to pursue their own values. This shift would have profound implications for policy, culture, and education, creating a society of empowered, responsible, and productive individuals. Implications for policy and law. In a society that embraces rational selfishness, the role of government would be redefined. Its primary function would be to protect individual rights, not to redistribute wealth or enforce social engineering. Individual rights and property. The law would be centered on the protection of life, liberty, and property. The right to own and control the products of one's mind and labor would be sacrosanct. This would mean a dramatic reduction in taxes and regulations that currently penalize success and punish ambition. Voluntary association. All interactions, from business deals to personal relationships, would be based on voluntary consent. There would be no policies forcing people to subsidize others or to participate in ventures against their will. This would create a society where cooperation is a choice, not an obligation. Justice, not mercy. The legal system would prioritize justice, giving each person what they deserve over mercy, which often involves sacrificing the rights of the victim for the sake of the perpetrator. Crime would be seen as a violation of individual rights, and the focus would be on restitution and punishment, not rehabilitation as a form of social welfare. A culture of achievement and responsibility. A culture that accepts rational selfishness would be a vibrant, dynamic one, valuing achievement, self-reliance, and personal responsibility. The hero as the ideal. The cultural ideal would shift from the martyr to the hero, the person who creates, innovates, and achieves greatness. Scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, and thinkers would be celebrated for their ability to bring new value into the world. End of the entitlement mentality. The idea of unearned benefits would be seen as a moral contradiction. People would understand that the only way to get what you want is to create value and trade for it. This would foster a culture of self-reliance and personal accountability. Embracing ambition. Ambition, far from being a dirty word, would be the engine of social progress. People would be encouraged to dream big and to pursue their goals without the fear of being labeled selfish or greedy. Education for independence. The educational system would be completely transformed. Its purpose would be to equip young minds with the tools they need to live a full and independent life. Focus on reason. The core of education would be the teaching of reason and critical thinking. Students would be taught how to think, not what to think. They would be encouraged to challenge assumptions, to seek evidence, and to form their own independent judgments. Practical skills. Education would focus on teaching the practical skills necessary to create value in the world. This would include entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and the mastery of a trade or profession. Celebrating the individual mind. The classroom would be a place where the individual mind is celebrated. Students would be encouraged to pursue their passions and to develop their unique talents, understanding that their own intellectual and personal growth is the highest moral purpose. In this envisioned world, society would not be a sacrifice but a benefit. It would be a place where individuals thrive, and in doing so, create a prosperous, innovative, and truly free world for all. Cancel culture. A society grounded in rational selfishness provides a powerful antidote to some of the most pressing modern challenges, which are often the direct result of a collectivist, altruistic mindset. These challenges cancel culture, the entitlement mentality, and the pressure to conform are symptoms of a society that has lost sight of the individual. Cancel culture is a direct product of altruistic morality. It is a form of social punishment that is not based on objective justice or a violation of rights, but on a collective outrage over a person's perceived moral transgression. It demands that an individual be sacrificed for the good of the group's feeling of righteousness. This is not about justice. It's about conformity to a social dogma, enforced through the mob. The rational selfishness counter. In a rational society, the focus would be on objective harm and justice. Did a person violate someone's rights? If not, their ideas and statements, no matter how unpopular, are a matter of personal opinion, not a criminal offense. The individual would be judged on their actions and their character, not on whether they failed to appease a fleeting mob mentality. You would be free to agree or disagree with a person's ideas, but you would not have the moral right to destroy their career or life for those ideas. This protects free thought and honest expression. The entitlement mentality. The entitlement mentality is the belief that one is owed something by others, regardless of whether they have earned it. It is the natural endpoint of an altruistic morality, which teaches that a person's needs are a moral claim on the lives of others. This creates a society of dependence, where people expect to be given what they want and feel a sense of righteous anger when they are not. The rational selfishness counter. Rational selfishness is the ultimate rejection of the entitlement mentality. It is the understanding that the only way to get what you want is to create value and trade for it. Your life and your labor are your own, and you have no moral claim on the life or labor of anyone else. This shifts the focus from what society owes you to what you can create and offer to society, fostering a culture of self-reliance, innovation, and personal responsibility. It replaces the demand for handouts with the drive to produce. The pressure to conform. The pressure to conform is a subtle but powerful form of social control that stifles individualism and creative thought. It is a demand that you sacrifice your unique perspective and convictions for the sake of social harmony or to avoid ostracism. This is the death of genius, as all great breakthroughs are made by those who have the courage to think differently. The rational selfishness counter. A culture of rational selfishness would celebrate independence of thought. It would see an individual's unique perspective not as a threat, but as a source of potential value. The moral imperative would be to think for yourself and to live by your own judgment. The courage to stand alone, to be an individual rather than a part of a herd, would be the highest virtue. In such a world, the fear of social disapproval would be replaced by the pride of intellectual integrity, leading to a more innovative, vibrant, and honest society. Example of selfish society. The year is 2242. The city of Ethelred is not a utopia, but a testament to what is possible when a society fully embraces rational selfishness. The air hums not with the drone of mandates, but with the kinetic energy of individual ambition. There are no centralized, top-down city planners. The cityscape itself is a chaotic, beautiful testament to voluntary cooperation. Towering, asymmetrical structures rise from the earth, each a distinct architectural signature of the individual or company that built it. The street level is a bustling marketplace where goods and services are traded openly, without the burden of complex regulations. In this world, the concept of a job has largely been replaced by the idea of a personal project. People don't work for a paycheck alone. They work to realize their own vision. Ilara is a bioengineer who spends her days in a self-designed lab, not on a corporate payroll. Her personal project is developing a sustainable, nutrient-rich protein that can be grown in urban vertical farms. She funds her research by selling a smaller, less complex version of her technology to home gardeners. She is not a martyr for humanity. She is a woman driven by a selfish passion for science and the desire to create a valuable product. The wealth she amasses is not a dirty secret, but a direct measure of the value she has created. Across town, a young man named Cale is a musician. He doesn't play for a record label. He streams his performances directly to his followers, who voluntarily subscribe to his music. He has built his entire livelihood on the basis of a direct, voluntary exchange of value. His music is his passion, and his success is a reflection of its quality and the joy it brings to his audience. He is not beholden to a corporation's artistic demands. His art is pure, because its value is determined by the people who choose to support it. The city's infrastructure itself is a marvel of self-interest. A consortium of different tech companies, each with a vested interest in a fast, efficient transport system, built the city's Hyperloop network. They competed to create the best, most efficient system, and the consumer's choice dictated their success. This is not the result of a government decree, but of individuals and companies pursuing their own profits. In this world, the idea of giving back is seen not as a moral obligation, but as a natural consequence of success. When Ilara's protein technology becomes a global success, the benefits will ripple outward. She will hire new staff, create new industries, and provide a valuable product to millions. Her selfish pursuit of her own goals will have made the world a better place, not through sacrifice, but through the triumph of her own intellect and ambition. This is a society that doesn't just tolerate selfishness. It recognizes it as the essential force that builds, creates, and sustains civilization itself. Conclusion. The book has explored the philosophy of rational selfishness, not as a license for cruelty, but as a moral code for living a full, purposeful life. We have redefined selfishness as the pursuit of one's own rational self-interest, guided by reason and a commitment to one's own values. This is not the selfishness of a parasite, but of a producer. We have seen how this philosophy is not just a personal choice, but the very engine of human progress, driving innovation, prosperity, and healthy relationships. The moral case for you. The central thesis of this book is that your life is your own, and your highest moral purpose is to live it to the fullest. To do this, you must reject the morality of altruism, which demands that you sacrifice your values for the needs of others. This is a moral code that fosters resentment, guilt, and stagnation. Instead, you must embrace a moral code that celebrates your mind, your work, and your happiness. Rational selfishness is not about harming others. It's about refusing to be harmed. It is the understanding that you are a sovereign individual with the right to your own life and the products of your own labor. This philosophy frees you from the crippling weight of unearned guilt and allows you to make decisions based on your own judgment, not on the expectations of others. A call to action. The journey to living a selfish life, a truly self-owned life, is a continuous one. It starts with small, deliberate choices. Begin by asking yourself, what do I want? And what is in my best interest, without shame or guilt? Start small. Make one selfish decision this week. It could be dedicating an hour to a hobby you love, saying no to a request that would drain your energy, or simply taking time for quiet reflection. Define your values. Take the time to write down what truly matters to you. Is it creativity, freedom, security, or something else? Use these values as a compass to guide your decisions. Embrace responsibility. Understand that living for yourself means you are responsible for yourself. You are responsible for your own happiness, your own success, and your own failures. This is not a burden. It is the ultimate expression of your freedom. The world you want to build, the life you want to live, and the person you want to become all depend on your willingness to be selfish in the most rational and profound sense of the word. It is a bold choice, a moral choice, and the only choice that will lead you to a life of purpose, pride, and genuine fulfillment. Start today. Appendix A, recommended reading. For those who wish to delve deeper into the philosophy of rational selfishness, the following works by Ayn Rand are the foundational texts from which the ideas in this book are derived. These works are not light reading. They are demanding, intellectually rigorous, and will challenge your most deeply held beliefs. The Virtue of Selfishness. This book is the philosophical core of the ideas presented in this work. It is a collection of essays that directly define and defend rational egoism, or rational selfishness. It explicitly contrasts this philosophy with the traditional, self-sacrificial morality of altruism. If you wish to understand the logical and moral basis for a life lived for your own sake, this is the place to start. It provides a clear, non-fiction argument for why selfishness is a virtue. Atlas Shrugged. This is Ayn Rand's most famous and comprehensive work of fiction. It is a monumental novel that dramatizes the philosophy of rational selfishness through a sprawling, futuristic narrative. The story presents a world where the most productive and brilliant individuals are going on strike, refusing to serve a society that despises them. Through its characters and plot, the book illustrates the profound connection between reason, ambition, and the creation of value. It is an epic defense of the human mind and a warning against the dangers of collectivism. The Fountainhead. A novel that explores the theme of individualism versus collectivism through the life of a brilliant architect, Howard Rourke. Rourke is an uncompromising man who refuses to sacrifice his creative vision for the sake of public opinion or conventional standards. The book is a powerful tribute to the integrity of the individual and a searing critique of second-handers, those who live through the approval of others. It is an inspiring and dramatic portrayal of a man who lives a life of complete and uncompromising selfishness.